edition, the second edition of Polemics, and I am hosting today. I'm Ikenna. My handle is Fieldrift at Fieldrift, and with me, as usual, is Abigail.
Hi, Ikenna. How are you?
I am fine. I'm fine, and I hope you're good.
Yes, I am.
And then, yeah, and at the bottom, banana guy, Tosin.
Hello, brother.
So
How are
hello,
you?
Tosin. Hello, what?
Hello, brother. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. So we
Hope you're
have
well.
yeah, I am. So we have a number of things to talk about today, but in the past week, the issue that has been on everyone's mind or has been in the news is the case of xenophobia in South Africa. And it basically started last weekend with news coming from South Africa about attacks on Nigerian immigrants and Nigerians who have businesses in South Africa, attacks on Nigerians, attacks on their businesses. And the weekend was spent, there was a lot of outreach starting from social media and spreading into the wider public over the weekend, over last weekend, not this weekend. And on Monday, that outrage on social media now spread to first protests at South African businesses, and the key South African businesses in Nigeria are ShopRite, MTN, and DSTV. So you had protests, first of all, people carrying placards to ShopRite, and that now descended into full-scale violence, full-scale break-ins, full-scale looting of ShopRite shops in different parts of Nigeria. There were cases in the ShopRite mall, in the malls at Aja, at Lekki, I think at Shangota, I think. And there was also an attempt, even though that was thwarted by the police, in Abuja. There were also attempts on MTN offices in different parts of the country. And coupled with all of that violence and looting, you also had a number of underlying issues also. You had the issue of fake news and the spread of, or the spreading of old videos of people being burned, of places being burned, old videos that came from other events, probably other xenophobic events, statements from South African government officials. You had that going on. You also had you also had complaints about the response of the government, of the Nigerian government in particular. There was the issue of should the Nigerian government and should Nigerian government officials go or attend the WEF, the World Economic Forum in Cape Town, which started on the 4th. There was that issue. There was also the spat between, I think, Burna Boy and a fellow called AKA Worldwide, a South African artist who said some, well, low-key xenophobic stuff after Nigeria defeated South Africa. So many things have happened over the week, and there are many things to discuss. But I would like us to look at what has happened and talk about whether there are any, what are the deep social issues behind the event, the deep social issues behind the event, starting with South Africa. Like, what is it in South Africa, and why this backlash against foreigners, because it's not just Nigerians, but foreigners in South Africa and Nigerians also in particular. So who wants to go first?
Okay. A lot of postulations have been. There have been a lot of postulations as to what is responsible for the continual xenophobia by South Africans. Some have said it is historical, um, being that South Africa historically has been under apartheid, and so over the years they have learned only one way to do things, which is the struggle, fight, struggle, and there is an it's been portrayed as being something ingrained, and I tend to agree with that. I mean, I was listening to uh, a TED talk recently, and something was said about how mindsets are formed. It's either positive or negative. The things you reinforce, your brain functionality, structure, and chemical releases are based on the things that you feed on or you feed your mind on. So if you feed your mind on positive things, you turn out with a positive personality. But if you feed your mind with negative things, then the reverse is the case. So I think I would agree with the fact that it is basically a mindset. So when you have a mindset that you are being oppressed, and that everyone, you are the oppressed and every other person is the oppressor, then you get the kind of things that you got happening in South Africa. And it's not a the fact that it's not a one-off thing actually reinforces this, that it's ingrained, it's something that it's a mindset, and it will take uh, a what's the word now? It will take a very targeted targeted intervention to be able to remove it.
Okay, so you're talking about there is a deep victim mentality among South Africans, but one could argue
Yes.
that that victim mentality, okay, one could argue that that victim mentality is justified, and that brings up the question: is this still the legacy of apartheid? Because apartheid was something that really made a deep scar on the South African psyche. So, is this the continual legacy of apartheid? I think Tosi can take it up from here. Are we looking at one of another um, another scar left by apartheid?
I think it's a lot more complex than it being the scar of apartheid. Though, of course, you must understand that this is the first generation of the first set of people that were born after apartheid are about 25 years old. So they're
Yeah.
just about to enter the labor force, or they should be active members of the labor force. I was speaking with an older South African Nigerian friend, and he said, look, he explained it to me in this way. He said, look, in 94, when the South Africans got their liberation and the white rule fell, the political class made a number of promises to the South African people. And they made promises to the effect that once we take power, the dividends of democracy, or the standard of living of the average black South African, would improve. You understand?
Okay.
And the government, the people fell back expecting the standards of living to improve because they had political power. 25 years on, that hasn't happened. You understand? He explained that South Africa is in a situation where they did not make the prerequisite investment in their young people, their future, their education, and all that. And that because of that, now that these people are into the getting into the workforce, getting to the age where they should be productive members of society, and they cannot, they're not, the South Africa has a huge youth unemployment problem. I think they have a 20% unemployment rate and a youth unemployment rate of something a lot higher than that. I need to check. So he explains that there are lots of young people who don't have things to do, and they look around and they have been told, or they see foreigners coming, and foreigners through crime or trade or anything or whatever acquiring resources that they do not have. So there is this resentment and envy and fear and negative emotion around people that have things that they do not have. And this has to do with material things. As such, the violence you see is just a reaction to that, and reaction to the disappointment that the ruling class, the political class, made some promises that they have not been able to keep. So so that's the point of view of that math experiment, and it seemed very coherent to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now I don't know if you could call that an
Yeah.
echo
So
from
the,
history.
the, the,
Yeah, see it.
the, the
Wow.
unemployment rate is 55, but I think
Wow,
Ikenna
what
is
a
sharing
start.
that 55.2% um, unemployment rate among young people. But I'll still, I mean, I
For
will
young
still
people.
tie this back to a mindset. Because I mean, you made a point that what we expect, what was expected the past 25 years, is that when institutionalized racism was taken out in quotes from South Africa, that the blacks in South Africa expected that their fortunes will change, and those fortunes would only change if they in the education of the people who are getting older now. And education, we should accept, is not just formal education. There's also informal education. If I'm to borrow a leaf out of Nigeria's book, we are still battling to a large extent with ethnicism, nepotism, tribalism here in Nigeria, despite we have a lower youth unemployment rate than South Africa. So imagine the mixture of idle hands and uneducated, not being very educated in the right way, because most education mostly is informal. A lot of people, even what they learn in school, if they do not see practical value um, from what they learn in school, they unlearn what they learn. And that takes me back to the research on how the brain works. Because we can't discuss this issue without tying it back to a mindset. And the mindset is we are victims. We were victims under the whites, and now we were able to break free from that um, institutionalized racism, and it's time for us to break free from this next type of uh, segregation that we are facing. Because I'm trying to put myself now in the shoes. I spoke to a friend myself who lives in South Africa, and this was his perspective. He's not even South African; he's Nigerian, but he's seen things from the mindset of the average South African youth who is not getting what he expects to get, and he feels that there are some people who are here taking what he's supposed to get. This is a mindset, and the only way you can unlearn things is by uh, taking positive personal action to unlearn. And this unlearning is not being institutionalized. The same way racism was institutionalized, unlearning of segregation, racism, and victimhood that comes, victimhood mindsets that comes with this should be unlearned in the same way. But investment is not made into this unlearning, and we have what we have.
But how would that work? How would that work? Is it going to be from the family? Because there is also the issue of the state of the
How
families, the state
how
of families in South Africa, and there's the issue. There's that issue. Um, it almost it ties in with the almost, I mean, the constant, every time we get constant news about violence, especially domestic violence, partner relationship violence in South Africa, and rape and those kind of things. So it ties in a bit. So the question is, how is this going to happen? How is this unlearning, this institutionalized unlearning going to take place?
Well, if I'm to
So
take a
just
stab
checking
at
the
that,
stats.
Okay, go on,
yeah,
Abigail.
I
Just
would,
you can come in
yeah, if I'm
after.
to take, if I'm to take a stab at that, and I think the same stats that Tosin was talking about is the one I was looking at referencing, which is what's the literacy rate in South Africa? Because among the youth, what's the literacy rate? I I I wager that if you place the literacy rate of youth in South Africa side by side with the unemployment rate, it will be almost at par. So the yes, the family plays a role, but the family alone cannot do this. This is where to start. You start with the family. But peer pressure is there, we can't forget. Society is there. And of course, a person can learn something from his family and come out and society teaches him something different. So it takes a lot of resilience to be able to sustain something just at the family level. So, like I said, it should be institutionalized. It should be the government taking the lead. Unfortunately, I do not think that this is happening at the rate that. And again, I will draw back to Nigeria because whether we like it or not, the things that are happening in South
We,
Africa on
we are
maybe a
coming to
larger
Nigeria.
scale because it's a country against neighbors is happening. Yeah, no, I'm trying to draw a point from there. And it still goes back to the same thing. It's mindset, it's education. And so education should be accelerated education and it should be institutionalized right from the government level. That's where I think it should come from.
Okay, Tosi, anything to add?
Okay, so I just wanted to point out some facts or some stats. So youth unemployment in Nigeria is 36.50%,
Okay.
which is not as bad as South Africa, but it's not very
Yes.
good. And amazingly enough, youth literacy in South Africa is 99%. So, well, so they apparently they the the I'm surprised, but yeah, the young people of South Africa are pretty literate. I think that said, I remember South Africa's inequality is great. Inequality, their Gini coefficient was the highest in in Africa, meaning that South Africa has a very unequal society.
Society.
You understand? As much as they are the largest economy in Africa, and a lot of the productivity and wealth and capacity is very lopsided. You understand? There is still a massive inequality issue, and with crime, it's with crime and violent crime. It's being poor is not a problem with crime. So poverty doesn't cause crime, or poverty doesn't cause crime as long as everybody is equally poor in a society. You would have a more or less peaceful society. What
Hmm.
causes crime? What drives crime is inequality. You understand? Where some people have and some people don't have. And what makes it worse is when some people do not have hope of having. You understand? So in a
Okay.
society that is a bit egalitarian, where there is a lot of social mobility and churn and all that, even the inequality would not drive crime because people feel that if I work hard, if I get a profession, if I go to school, if I do the right things, maybe I could rise up the ladder. You understand? But in a system where it seems that in a system that seems to the or to the participants that this system is rigged against me, and the only it then it makes no sense, or it makes sense for the participant of the system to try and bring the system down. You understand? Because that person does not have an interest in the stability of society and the system. And they've been told that. And they've been told that. And I think also it's a message that the political class in South Africa have pushed to cover themselves from their own failures. You understand?
That's true.
So
That's true.
they've promised their people XYZ. They haven't been able to achieve said XYZ. It's it's easier for them to distract from their failures by saying or by hinting that, oh, the cause of your problem is these people
The
and
white
this thing. So
man,
that's why
the
you see
foreigner.
politicians, you see videos of politicians saying things about foreigners taken from them, or the foreigners dominating them in their own country. Um, yeah, it's pretty awful. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that now leads
Yeah, well,
brings us.
I
Okay, go on.
yeah, I just wanted to just chip in something at this point that while we look at the total literacy rate of South Africa as 95%, we should not forget that um, the blacks in South Africa are at the lower rung of that literacy um, balance. I'm looking at a report here um, titled, yeah, this report is saying, the
You
report
can
is
share the
titled
screen.
Educational Enrollment. No, I can't actually. The report is saying Educational Enrollment and Achievement 2016. And what the report is saying is that Black South Africans between the ages of 25 and 64 still lag behind when it comes to obtaining higher education qualifications compared to other population groups. This that white South Africans are far better off, as 38% of them of white South Africans have post-secondary education, which is
Mm-hmm.
higher than, I'm trying to find the um, 15% for Black Africans, 15% and 38% for whites. So at
That's not
the end of the day,
I,
it's not terribly bad.
that's not
I'm not saying
incredibly
it
low.
is.
Think
No,
about
I
it.
am not. I'm not saying it is that the
Yeah,
divide is terribly bad, but we are talking about higher education here. And what sort of education do they have? I mean, I am not personally qualified to be talking about South African education because I've not looked at um, what the content of their curriculum and all of that is. But speaking in general, I still think that it goes back to a mindset that has been cultivated over time. And that mindset needs to be changed. And the only way you can change, or one of the ways, primary ways you can change the mindset, is through how you educate people, the kind of education they get. It's not just about reading and writing, which is what literacy tests. Um, can you read? Can you write? Yeah, yes, I can. But that doesn't mean that you are educated. When I use that, I use it. So, what kind of education do they have? And why is it not having a positive effect on their lives? Those are the things we need answers to. Because, I mean, waking up and lynching people because you think that they are stealing from you, that kind of behavior is not the way people who have received positive education behave. So there is a lack somewhere, and that has to do with their mindset. And so I keep pointing at mindset because I think that's where it all starts from.
Okay, let's move
Okay,
up north to
so
Nigeria.
there's a very interesting piece of Ikenna. There's a very interesting market insight document. I've sent the link in the chat, and it's I'll just can I share my screen?
Yes, you can.
Let me share my screen. I can show you this. Okay, share screen. So share. Yeah. So can you see my screen?
Okay.
No, not yet. Yeah, it's coming.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is from the South Africa's stats essay. So that's their government statistical agency. Look at this. Unemployment rate among youth is higher irrespective of education level. So total youth unemployment 15 to 24 years, 55.2%, right? So less than matric. So I assume this is you haven't finished secondary school. So that's 60.4%. So 58.4%, about 60%. Matric,
Yeah.
that means you finished your SSC, so it drops down by only 3%. So getting an SSC, getting a school certificate doesn't help you, right? So, but going to university, the rate drops down to about 31%, which means that it's still
Doesn't change.
3 in 10 don't have jobs. Well, it proves it, but only marginal. But here's the thing: other tertiary. So I'm assuming these are polytechnics, the equivalent of our polytechnics, college for education, teacher training colleges, etc., and it's still quite high. So, listen, so statistics that shows that unemployment was highest irrespective of their level of education compared to older citizens in South Africa. The image below shows the unemployment rate for youth versus compares to other age groups. So it's the older you are, so yeah. I mean, it's normal that the older you are, the more employable you are because you have skills and all. But man, they really do have a youth unemployment problem in South Africa, don't they?
They definitely do.
From screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Wow.
think we need let's move down to Nigeria because we still have a lot to talk
I'm
about.
surprised they're
So
peaceful.
you can actually see. Okay.
All right. So, coming down to
She's gone.
Nigeria.
Okay, you can.
Coming down to Nigeria. Yeah. So coming down to
Yeah.
Nigeria.
You said you could see. You said you could see, and then we stopped hearing you. Abby.
Yeah, Ikenna right now. Yeah, I stopped talking
Okay,
because he said we
Ikenna.
should move forward. So I stopped.
Oh, okay.
All right. So
All right.
Ikenna had said, let's move ahead.
Okay.
I was good then. I stopped.
Okay, so let's move ahead. All right. So first of all, let's come down to Nigeria. So the first question we could pose is we will still come to the breakdown of law and order in Nigeria because what you had in ShopRites, the ShopRite stalls that were basically broken into and looted by people was basically breakdown of law and order. But I think the first question is, did the government respond adequately? Adequately in the sense that did it respond timely and did it respond sufficiently?
Well, I would say I do not think so on both
I think they
counts.
eventually mustered a response.
Okay.
Can I go first?
Okay, Tosin first.
I think their initial response was, in typical Nigerian government fashion, slow and inadequate. But eventually, due to public opinion and the breakdown of law and order and the outcry by Nigerians, I think they were able to get their act together. I think, and muster up a more robust response, I would say.
Okay, Abigail.
I agree.
Okay, and we should also there's also a reason for us to worry with how easily um, these places were attacked, because these are places. For example, the first one in the news was the ShopRite at Jakonde in Lekki. Now this is a highbrow area, and you had a gathering of touts and hoodlums there in no time. And then by evening, the ShopRite in Nigeria, these are places that one will expect to have some level of security. These places were broken into. Same thing with Surulere, which is at Deniro Ogusoya. So it's actually something to worry about. There's a lot to worry about with the fact of with how easy it is for things to break down. How easy it is for things to break down. People were talking
I'm so
about how if we're
I'm
going to
surprised you
go,
called that on the highbrow area.
that is in Lekki. Is it not what do you call that area? Second roundabout in Lekki.
Jakonde is not a highbrow area.
Oh, okay, okay.
Well, if you judge
Anyway,
from the floods, how the floods have been sending people in and out of that place, I doubt it's actually highbrow. Um, in the true sense
Mrs.
of the
Ti
word
used to live in
highbrow.
Lekki.
So,
Mrs. Ti used to live at Jakonde, and
okay,
she wouldn't she there were some places in the area she wouldn't go to at night because of crime.
okay.
Yeah.
yeah, and I think it still boils down to the same. See, I think the two societies are mirroring each other, and the response, the things that happened in the past couple of days, shows that we are even more alike than dissimilar. Um, Something happened in South Africa. Youths went on rampage. Unemployed youths went on rampage. Destroyed businesses there, and here in Nigeria, the very same thing happened. Um, of course, in both instances, the government did what they the same way the South African government responded with a measure of lethargy, if I'm to use that word. It's the same thing that happened here. So even though both the people in South Africa are thinking that the other Africans there are different than they are, it's apparent that we are all suffering from the
Similar.
same. Yes, we are all drinking the same Kool-Aid. We are all suffering from the same disease, and it's affecting us in different ways. Interestingly, I think I shared with you some stats about foreigners in South Africa,
Yeah, I remember
uh,
that, and I
and
don't
it
think
was
we
from 20.
are
No, we are not at all. I mean, if you actually look at the total number of foreigners in South Africa, Zimbabwe leads the pack with over 500,000. They are about 649,000. And this is as at 2017. Um, this stat was taken from the United Nations. And Zimbabwe leads the pack, followed by Mozambique, Lesotho, Namibia, United Kingdom, Malawi, Germany, Zambia, Swaziland, Botswana, Angola, DR Congo,
to be
Portugal,
fair,
India, China,
to be fair,
Italy, Netherlands, and
To,
Nigeria comes right
to
down
be
there with just about 27,000. So, and
to
but
be
well,
to be
fair,
know,
to be
I do
fair,
know that
the
to be
it's not,
to
to
be
be
fair,
fair,
I
the
do know I do
mm,
know, if you would let me finish, I do know that it's not just Nigerians that were being attacked in South Africa. It was against
okay,
foreigners, and that's the point I'm trying to make. That if the way they were
it does.
attacking, yes, it's made the sometimes, and this is what I believe happens with social media. Something happens and you blow it out of proportion in order to get the reaction that you want. And I am not saying that in this instance, the the blow or saying it, because I need to be very careful here. I am not saying that it is wrong to have talked about what is happening to Nigerians in South Africa. What I am saying is that the way, and I'm sure you're coming to that with the fake news and everything, and bringing old I think BBC even did a spotlight on that, bringing old information, resurfacing things just to
Yes.
trigger and stoke people to act in particular ways. I think it's just another side of the coin to xenophobia, because you are also trying to trigger people to act in a particular way, which is the same way. So how are you the bigger person? That's the question.
Because that also points to one of the last things I wanted us to talk about, which is the calls. There was a call by the head of NANS, Nigerian Association of Nigerian Students, giving South African companies an ultimatum to leave the country. You also had calls for nationalization of
Why
these
are we
firms like MTN and DSTV. There was a funny one where somebody said, "Look, that we don't need MTN, we have Glow," and to be very funny. This was very funny. We don't need DSTV, we have TSTV. Anyway, just to go on.
That's a joke. Yeah. Okay, so one, I don't think we should take the leadership of NANS seriously. I mean, we are both, you're an academic and I'm a student of life. Even when we were students, we didn't take NANS seriously, so really don't take NANS seriously. However, what you should take seriously is when a person like Oshomole, who is the chairman of the ruling party, says they should nationalize MTN. Yeah, that's scary, especially when you think about how much of MTN Nigeria is actually owned by Nigerians, which either, which actually, I mean, I don't know, but if you, the largest shareholder in MTN, I think is actually a Nigerian pension fund. So, yeah, one
Well,
of the
interestingly,
major
Tosin,
shareholders is the Nigerian
I'm not
pension
actually,
fund. So,
I'm not even
it's either it
cutting you
betrays
off.
that, it indicates that.
Go on, Tosin.
Hello? Okay, so I thought Abby wanted to say something. Well,
yeah, I
it
was
either
going to
it betrays, it indicates that either the all right, Abby, please go on.
no, I was going to say something about the shareholdership and how I actually got a WhatsApp broadcast from somewhere, a very funny one, telling us that um, like trying to minimize the Nigerian shareholdership of some of these companies, putting it at 1%, 2%, 3%, and some very funny figures like that. So I am agreeing with you that a lot of misinformation has gone out. Like you were talking about Nigerians owning um, like a major share. I am not even sure of that information now.
Well, I
Well,
don't know
I
how
could
public that
always
data
link, I could always link you to, I could always find the annual, I could find a financial report of MTN. I just pull it out if I want to. But what I was trying to say is, it just showed that either the comrade chairman doesn't know these things, or he knows these things, and that's even scarier. He knows these things, but has decided to play to the gallery. You understand? By provoking a reaction. So I think it's when the NANS chairman says it, you can you can dismiss it as the speech of an uneducated Nigerian student or a half-baked Nigerian student. But when a party chairman of a ruling party, the ruling party says this, I think it doesn't do us well, and it doesn't show Nigeria as a good place to invest to park your money. So I think when we say things like this, it actually shoots us. We shoot ourselves in the foot.
yeah. It does. It does. Okay. Anyway, we
Ikenna?
have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it does. So I think we can end the topic at this point because we've gotten to the 40-minute mark. So exit question. Exit question. Because this is not the first occasion of xenophobia. This is not the first occasion of xenophobia in South Africa or xenophobic attacks in South Africa. So the question is this event, the events of last week, is it a tipping point that will lead to a proper addressing of the issue, or will we be here again sometime in the future?
Well, if history is what history is, then it will always repeat itself.
Okay. Okay. So you do not think this is the tipping point?
I don't think we've even heard the last of this issue, to be fair. To be fair, so no, I actually feel that this xenophobia issue, this round of xenophobia, hasn't even ended. To be fair, I think we're gonna have a lot more of this going forward. Unfortunately, when is the
Okay.
next South African election? Let me just check.
I think they'll do elections in 2021.
Okay, so I'll make a prediction now. There will be a round of xenophobia next year, just before the elections.
In 2021.
Yeah, so there'll be one next year. I can make. If I was a betting man, I'd bet we would have one more big event and several smaller events. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. So, on that note, before we talk about the books or what we've been reading and watching, a few things we can talk about. A few things briefly. First of all, I think the past week marked 100 days for most administrations, most of the new administrations that came in on May the 29th. And these days, I have seen a lot. I've seen and heard a lot about the good things the governor of Oyo State is doing. And people actually sound optimistic. People actually sound optimistic. So, what do you think? What do you think? Is this hope what the hype?
Avi, you want to go
Um,
first?
uh, yeah, I would say that we can only hope that hope is good. Hope is good, and we can only hope that the hope comes to a realization.
Okay, but from all
Yeah.
indications, does it look like it will?
Well, I read his. I've followed Mr. Markinde, Engineer Markinde, for longer than I would admit. I would care to admit, because he was on my LinkedIn even before this round of electioneering. And I think he's a very clever man with a plan. I think he started well and he's saying the right things.
Okay,
And I think he's trying to govern with common sense. Now, I do not know. I've made a prediction to in the private Telegram group. I've made a prediction which I will not repeat here. But this guy is he's this guy. He has rekindled hope, and that's a good thing. And I really hope he can sustain the efforts and he's able to please his people. On the other hand, the governor of my resident state, it's 100 days and he doesn't have a cabinet, so that's fine. And how's the governor of your state doing? Ikenna.
My state
Or do you
is
even know his name?
yeah. I know the name of my governor. Yeah, I know the name of my governor. My governor is, we are one of those states that have staggered elections. So we are warming up for elections. I think in 2021, and it's going to be a new. It has to be something new because the current governor is in his second term and he's disappointing. He's seriously disappointing. Anambra is basically falling apart. The roads. Anambra has been known for roads, for
I
its
was
good
talking
road
about the
network.
state you live in.
I'm coming to the state I live in. I'm
I was talking about
starting
the
from the
state.
state I'm starting from the state that I'm from.
Oh, okay.
And so
Okay.
Anambra is falling apart, and the governor basically is just like, at this point, enjoying his last days. He's enjoying his last days, just living the life and wearing designer glasses and bling and living the baby boy life in the last 2 years of his governorship while the state breaks down. So we hope that it can be reset. There's a proper reset. As for Enugu State, I think what we're getting is more of the same. More of the same. That is more of what I would say it has been a mediocre government, a mediocre administration. We're in the second term of a mediocre administration. And one thing Enugu doesn't really have is a strong opposition. So we're basically stuck with whoever PDP, we have basically been stuck with whoever PDP chooses as governor for the past since 1999. So I don't expect it's going to change. I don't expect that the governor is going to do more than he's doing now. And the hope is that things do not get too bad. Okay. Anything you want to add? Anything, Abigail?
Nope.
Special mention about Lagos. Special
Oh,
mention about the gentleman in Lagos.
well,
So apparently he made some promises, and he made some private sector. He made some private sector promises. So he made some smart goals, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and most importantly, time bound. With
okay.
regarding Apapa Highway, the Apapa issue,
Yeah, Papa
and
Express and this
a friend of
conjunction.
mine pointed it out on national radio, and his surrogate started stammering. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
So he
he,
made
he
some promises. He said, I think
the
he said
story,
60 days, and then he said 100 days, and
100 days, yeah.
it's 100 days, and he hasn't solved that problem.
What happened was basically that it was put to the
Hello?
government official that he made this promise, and the fellow denied it, and then the recording was played of him making the promise, and that was when he was now stumped.
Yeah,
That was when
yeah.
he was now
I
stumped.
don't think they will come back to that show again.
Well, let's hope
So
let's hope that the radio station still has
so
its license.
okay,
Okay,
that's for 100 days in
I don't
yeah.
know, and on second thoughts, I don't think we should talk about this topic, the medical
Why so?
abortion topic, or do we go for it?
I thought we don't have red line topics. What?
Do we go for it?
What topic?
The
Well, we're
the
actually running
the
out of
Which one?
time.
abortion, the medical abortion
What?
topic.
I don't really think there is much to be said about the
Hmm.
medical abortion issue. Someone said something silly. She was called out on it, and I think that's that. Everything that needs to be said about the medical abortion issue, I think, has already been said by different people. You don't give medical advice when you're not qualified to do so, even if you have the word doctor attached to your name and you do not have the qualifications. And I am talking qualifications in terms of morals, technical, and whatever other prerequisites, knowledge to share it, even psychological or emotional, then you really should not be sharing information that would be detrimental to um, members of society.
information about procedures that are actual also illegal in the
Oh,
country, but that's another
so
issue.
Yes, yes.
yeah, yeah. So I saw that. I saw that. I think it was Abby that shared that tweet to me, and I was in the medical. I was in the female ward. I was in a female ward with my wife, and let's just say it put a lot of things in context for me. And one of some things are really dangerous, and people should be careful about what medical advice they get on the. You shouldn't take medical advice from the internet. I mean, not everyone who says is a doctor on Twitter is a doctor. I have a friend who, well, we all have a friend who says, yeah,
This is a
who
low blow. This
people
is a
think
low blow.
has a PhD, but he has
This
explained
is a
to us
low
more
blow.
than one time, and
This is a
he's
low
explained
blow.
to us what the PhD means. And yeah, so yeah, he's my friend. I love him, but but really, you shouldn't take medical advice on the internet, especially on really dangerous. You shouldn't take a Twitter prescription is not a prescription.
Or even a Google prescription. Don't
Anyways,
Google your symptoms.
I mean, that goes without saying.
you learn not to Google your symptoms.
Yeah. All right. So
Yeah,
one more
yeah,
thing.
it does.
One more
It
thing.
does.
This is one more thing. There was the thread done by what's his name? Is he his name Ayobami or Idris? About he did a thread about the people that Kwam
Idris,
had
Idris.
Idris had praised in his music, and he mentioned a lot of people who were fraudsters, who were the fraudsters of the 90s, the 80s, and the 90s, the fraudsters and the criminals of the 80s and the 90s that Kwamwon has praised in many of his songs and many of his albums. And then all of a sudden, because I never got to see that tweet because it was taken down, Idris was suspended and then reinstated, and then the tweet was taken down. And it was funny because why? What? Who got so triggered and got him taken down? And got him to take it down.
Well, somebody who definitely didn't want that information.
Well,
I mean, you don't need to have a seer tell you that. Well, thankfully, I was saved. I didn't see the tweet. I didn't even know he was suspended, and I didn't know he was restored. So I have no comments.
so someone shared again. Someone showed me the screenshot of the tweets, and he really pissed off a lot of people. And let's put it this way: he brought out information that people had chosen to forget, and he brought it out in well-researched fashion. I I commend him for his efforts and for his balls to do what he did, and I wish him good luck and all that. But yeah, apparently you don't take you don't. There are certain set of people that don't want you to pull. They don't want people to see the truth about their heroes, and that includes their court jester. So that's what I'll say about that issue. But if you look around Twitter, you will still see screenshots of what Idris said, and they're still there. And it's a topic for another day, I think.
Okay. All right. So, to round up, let us talk about what we are reading and what we are watching or what we are listening to. I will start first. I haven't really read much that is different from the last week, but this week I I had focused on what I'd been reading for a very long time now. I've been reading it over this year. It's something I've been reading gradually, and it's a book about the history of contemporary philosophy. The book is called The History of Contemporary Philosophy by a fellow called Mariano Fazio, and it basically chronicles contemporary philosophy. Contemporary philosophy basically starts from Kant, Immanuel Kant. Contemporary philosophy. Before contemporary philosophy, you had modern philosophy, you had medieval and ancient philosophy. So contemporary philosophy starts from Kant down, and it chronicles the philosophers, the key philosophers of the times, from Kant to Hegel to Marx to Sartre down to the postmodernists. And it's actually interesting as you see how the ideas of then are shaping the opinions of now. Okay. So Abigail?
Well, I started reading a book I got a long time ago, and this book, if let me see if I can share my screen. Can I? No, I don't think I can. Anyway, the book is titled "The 30 Picture Perfect, Picture Perfect Weight Loss 30-Day Plan." It was written by Dr. Shapiro, not Ben Shapiro. This is
Oh,
another
okay.
Shapiro.
Okay.
Well, it's about weight loss,
Is
and
it Mrs. Shapiro?
All right.
Is it is it Mrs. Shapiro?
it's a doctor. It's a man. It's a doctor man, Shapiro. But I do not think it's Ben Shapiro.
No, his
Anyway,
wife is a doctor.
this is a guy. I'm looking at his
And he
picture.
lets you know that.
Mm, mm.
Okay.
Go on, go on, go on,
Okay,
go
so
on.
the picture perfect weight loss. Sorry, excuse me. Excuse me. The picture perfect weight loss 30-day plan. It's simply that. It's a 30-day plan to start you on the road to remaining fit for life. So, what I actually liked about this book is that it's not one of those books that you just read that gives you a crash diet or anything like that. No, it talks about tested and trusted method of losing weight and keeping it off, and that is counting your calories, knowing what you're eating, and it actually points to something that I feel a lot of Nigerians should pay attention to, which is reading food labels. I do not think we have been taught enough of that, or that we know enough about that. I think that a lot of people add weight because they do not know what's in their food. And so picture perfect weight loss is all about know what's in your food so that when you're eating, you know what you're taking in, and then you know how much you need to eat of it so that you remain healthy. So it's a very beautiful book and I recommend it.
Okay. So Tosin.
Well, I've been really busy this week, so I've completed the Bitcoin standard, but I haven't moved on to anything. But I have ordered my pre-order, my Amazon pre-order for Call Sign Chaos by Jim Mattis and Bing West has started its epic journey from wherever it is in the United States to Nigeria, so I can track my book. And also, I watched a nice YouTube video. Nice YouTube video. He was interviewed by the Hoover Institution, where I mean Jim Mattis was video was interviewed by the Hoover Institution, where I
I,
think he's a fellow or a senior fellow, and he basically summarizes the book and the lessons in the book. And it's a lovely interview, and so I've listened to it, and it's a really good interview for anyone who aspires to be a leader. So I think you guys should check it out. The link will be in the description. The link is in the chat, Ikenna, so please upload it so that people can watch and learn from a really great man. So that's what it's been for me. I've spent most of my free time in the female ward of hospital, so that's also what my time has been on, and basically, yeah, it's a pretty learnful experience. So that's
okay.
that's how my week has gone.
Okay. Okay. So on that note, I would say it has been a wonderful hour. We are almost at an hour. In fact, we might end up perfectly at an hour of podcast, an hour of streaming. So thank you, Abigail. Thank you, Tosin. And we've had a wonderful conversation.
We've
And
gone over an hour. Let's just go crazy now.
okay, so we will be here again next week. And next week it's going to be Tosin that's going to host. And Tosin, if you're hosting, there should be small chops.
Yeah, I'll send small chop. Do they have small chops in
You
your
want to be a
village?
banana.
Cashew nut. We have a lot of cashew nuts.
So your small chops in Usuka has cashew nuts inside.
Okay, guys, have a great
Or
night.
is it the fruits?
All right, so we hope to see you again next week for another conversation on polemics. So goodbye and good night.
Good night, everyone.